Yeah, every year we in Law 2 have to do a communications lesson because like 98% of what law enforcement does is actually communicate. That's their biggest tool, and being able to communicate effectively means you don't have to use your other tools on your tool belt most of the time. And so we talk about verbal communication and nonverbal communication. And one of the areas that comes into this is communicating with drivers who are deaf. And so in years past, we just kind of briefly have talked over it. But then this year I got to thinking, Ms. Thompson, who used to be my neighbor over here, is teaching the ASL classes. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun for us to collaborate with her group where her students taught my students some of the basic things we would need in a traffic stop. I took each period 2 days in a row into her classroom, and she set it up where her kids were basically the teachers on one side of the room and my kids were the learners on the other side of the room. And so each period worked with my students, and we learned the alphabet first, we learned some numbers, and then we learned some basic things for a traffic stop. And then when we went back the next day, she gave us more numbers and more information on a traffic stop. And then individually, her students, 3 or 4, would take one of my students and work with individually to make sure that they were signing and doing it the appropriate way. Then after that, for 2 days, she would send a student into my classroom, and they would review us and answer any questions that we had. And then she, as well as another student, made videos for us to show us exactly, like if we forgot, I posted it in Canvas, and we were able to go in there and look and say, okay, this was the word for with, or speeding, or something like that. So that's how we did it. You know, what I would say is that we did this for law enforcement classes, and obviously it will benefit them if they actually go into law enforcement, but here's the deal. You know, several of my students now at Chick-fil-A have opened or working at Chick-fil-A in different places like that. You're going to have a hearing impaired or a deaf person come through, and these students now have a little bit more of an edge. Even though they don't know how to say some of those words, they can finger spell things out. And so that gives them a little edge in no matter what job or where they're at to be able to talk to somebody and make it easier for that deaf person to communicate in their daily lives and wherever establishment they're at. So I think that's kind of cool. They'll take it with them and use it regardless if they go into law enforcement or not.